Chapter 7, Social Influence and Group Processes. You need to think about your everyday life, my dear students, and various social interactions that you have. For example, when you go to your school, in the morning you have interaction with your family members. In school, when you meet your friends, you discuss various topics, be it academics, be it some general awareness topics. And after the school, you come back home, and then you interact with your friends, or you interact with your friends regarding not only playing, but maybe pertaining to your studies. And you also interact with your family members. You want to seek their comfort and support, and all these factors are highly essential to support your growth and development as an individual. So our lives are influenced by the nature of group membership that we have. It is therefore very important to be the part of groups which would influence us positively and help us in becoming good citizens. So, with this particular optimistic thought in mind, we will start with the chapter of social influence and group processes. The first thing is, what is the definition of a group? A group basically is defined as an organized system of two or more individuals. One person alone cannot form a group, so we need an organized system of two or more individuals who are interacting, who are interdependent, who have common motives, have a set of role relationships among the members, and have norms that regulate the behavior of the members. So, from this particular definition, we could decipher the following characteristics. The size of the group matters. Obviously, two or more than two individuals, they form a group. The group members, they are interacting and interdependent. They have common goals. They are following certain norms. Norms are those unspoken rules, all right, or the standards of conduct which tell us how to behave in the group. And it has a particular structure. There are certain roles that the members fulfill. Plus, they have a collective identity. So here we take up the characteristics of the group in detail. As you can see, the definition has been repeated here again. That group is an organized system of two or more individuals who are interacting, interdependent, having common motives, set of role relationships, and norms that regulate the behavior of the members. Individuals who are trying to satisfy a need through their joint association also influence each other, and a collection of individuals who are interdependent. Interdependent means that they are dependent on each other, because what one is doing may have the consequences for others. For example, in a cricket team, you have bowlers, you have fielders, you have batsmen. So, unless and until the batsman performs well, the team also cannot perform well. So, if he is not a good scorer, it may have disastrous consequences for the entire team. Individuals are trying to satisfy their need. For example, if you are a part of an organization, you are a part of your team, you are trying to satisfy your need, which could be a financial need, it could be a psychological need. You want to move up in the hierarchy. So all these needs are also getting satisfied when we are a part of the group. So there is a difference that I want to highlight here between group roles and group norms. What is a group norm? The acceptable standards of behavior shared by the group members is known as group norm, whereas group roles are the expected patterns of behavior based on a given position in a social unit. What is the role that you are performing in the family, as a maybe as a daughter, maybe as a sister, or as a granddaughter? What is your role in the family? That is what is known as group role. Now we also can see other collections of people from this particular slide. From the first picture, you can identify that there's a group of people who are forming a crowd. Here you can see an entire cricket team, that is also a collection of people. This is an audience, and this is a crazy mob who is trying to hurt each other, where people are trying to hurt each other. So let us come to the definition of crowd. Crowd is a collection of people who may be present at a place or a situation by chance. For example, maybe an accident has happened and people have gathered at the spot of the accident by chance. Team. They are the special kind of groups where members have complementary skills and are committed to a common goal or purpose. So members become mutually accountable for their activities. There is a positive synergy. That is a combination of all the activities leading to an effective outcome that is attained because of the coordinated efforts of the members. Audience is a collection of people who have assembled for a special purpose, maybe to watch a cricket match or a movie. And mob, its behavior is characterized by homogeneity, that is uniformity in thought and behavior, as well as impulsivity, which means that mob does not think before pelting stones at public properties. Mob does not think before pouncing on each other, right? So it is impulsive in nature. Having said and done this, I would like to highlight the difference between a group and a team. In a group, the performance is dependent on the contribution of individual members. In teams, both individual members' contribution and teamwork, both of them they matter. In groups, the leader holds responsibility, whereas in teams, there is a leader, but members are also equally responsible. Now, let me tell you, why do people join groups? People join groups because they satisfy a range of needs. The first is security. They reduce insecurity of standing alone. For example, neighborhood watch groups. All right. If you are insecure, all right, your neighborhood watch group may have deputed somebody who will take care of the security of all the people while you are busy in your work. So that is why you feel very, very secure when you are a part of particular association like a residents welfare association. Status. Inclusion in a group that is viewed as important provides a sense of recognition and status to the members. What is status? A socially defined position is called status. How do you acquire the status? By your ability to get recognized, all right, power over others, personal characteristics, all this contributes to your status. When we feel recognized, we experience a sense of power. For example, your school wins in an institutional debate competition. You feel proud because you are a part of that particular school. Then we come to is self-esteem. As I had explained earlier, self-esteem basically means value judgment about oneself. Groups provide the feelings of self-worth and establish a positive self-identity. Being a member of prestigious groups enhances one's self concept. If you are a member of prestigious groups, for example, like that of Lions Club of India or the Rotary Club of India, you feel quite, you feel that you are a part of the prestigious groups and it enhances your self esteem. For example, if you see these ladies here, they were a part of a ladies, global summit, which said that ladies will not be brides at a very early age. So all these people, you can see that they're smiling, they're having a lot of high sense of self-esteem because they're a part of this kind of group. Satisfaction of psychological and social needs, sense of belongingness, giving and receiving attention, love and power. These are your psychological and social needs that eventually get satisfied when you are a part of the group. You feel your need for belongingness to a particular group getting satisfied. There is if people give you attention, you give attention to the other people. You receive love. You also render love to the other person. Then you also have your sense of power that yes, I have the capability to lead my group. So that particular need, which is social need, is also getting satisfied because of when you are joining a particular group. Now, coming to the next is group formation. To form the group, some sort of interaction between the people is necessary. How is this interaction facilitated? This interaction is facilitated by the first point, which is called proximity. Proximity means when you're living close to each other. For example, in your family, in your colony, you have a group of friends. You are going out for playing badminton together. You are going out for picnics together. All right. So you have a repeated interaction with them. All right. And that is why you are able to know their attitudes and interests. Common interests and attitudes and backgrounds are important determinants of your liking for your group members. Similarity. People like consistency, and when two people are similar, there is a consistency and they start liking each other. For example, if two people have similar mindset, or they may have similarity in their hobbies, they are, they love reading. So there is a consistency in their liking, and that is why they start liking each other and they form a group. And if similarly, when when like-minded people they meet, if one expresses one's opinion and the other also feels the same way, so they said, yes, I agree with you. So they reinforce their opinions, they validate their opinions, they feel they are right, and that is why they start liking each other. Also, if people have common motives and goals because they have a particular interest, for example, few people they may have interest in providing community service. Since they have a common interest, they have a common goal, and they are doing it on a voluntary basis, so they are able to function effectively. These are the reasons by which the groups get formed. Now we come to the stages of group formation. These are the stages of group formation: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. The first stage is known as forming. Before I come to this stage, let me tell you that Tuckman had suggested these stages, that groups they pass through 5 developmental consequences. The first is when the group members meet. That is called the forming stage. For example, if people who do not know each other, they meet each other for the first time, they are very uncertain because they do not know each other. They try to know each other. They ask each other, okay, where do you belong to? Which place do you stay? Which organization are you working for? And they try to basically assess that whether I would be fitting in this particular group or not. So there is a lot of excitement within them because they are meeting new people, but at the same time they're very anxious that whether these new people are, are of my having the same interest and liking as me or not. The second we come to is the storming stage. In this stage, there is conflict among the group members. When people they start interacting, sometimes they have conflicting views and opinions. And then how the target is to be achieved, that becomes a big question. Who has to control the group? Who has the resources? When this stage is complete, there is some sort of hierarchy of leadership in the group that develops, and a clear vision also comes to focus as how you will achieve the group goal. The third stage is called norming. Norming means they form some unwritten rules related to group behavior, which leads to a positive group identity. The fourth stage is referred to as performing. By this time, the structure of the group has evolved and is accepted by the group members. The group moves towards achieving the group goal. In certain cases, this may be the last stage of group development. But however, it is always not like that. There is a stage which is called adjourning. As you can see from the slide, adjourning says that the team conducts an assessment of the year and implements a plan for transferring the roles and recognizing the contribution of the members, so the group becomes disbanded for the time being. For example, let us say that our school forms a cultural group. So, people, students from various classes and various sections, they first of all come together. Many of them, they know each other. Many of them, they do not know each other. So that is in the formation stage. Then these students are allowed to interact and decide how to achieve their goal, which is to put up an excellent, cultural function. So there will be fights, there will be conflicts, there will be contradictory opinions. That is called the storming stage. Some people would like to take leadership, some people do not like that person to become the leader. So there will be a lot of hostility therein. Then there will be coming a stage. You say now everything becomes quiet after the storm. You must have seen. So the people they suddenly they start developing the rules of the group behavior, and they come to a common consensus that yes, this is the way we will achieve This is called the norming stage. So they develop the norms of group behavior. Now it is a time to perform during the function after a lot of practice. So it is performing. So they start practicing. There is an open atmosphere. There is a trust and confidence. And hierarchy is also gaining little importance now. And after the performance is over, once you are able to put up an excellent stage show, the last stage is adjourning. The cultural group will be disbanded and a new group will be formed the next year and individual members will be given their due recognition. So these are the various stages of group formation. Now we come to the topic of group structure. A group structure is defined by four important points. One is the group, the roles, norms, status, and cohesiveness. The first three, I think I've already explained to you what is meant by group role and group norm. Role means socially defined expectations, whereas norms are the unspoken rules or expected standards of behavior, and status refers to the relative social position. Cohesiveness, it is known as togetherness, binding, mutual attraction among the group members. All right, that is called cohesiveness. But let me tell you, too much of binding, too much of togetherness, too much of solidarity among the group members may sometimes harm the interest of the group. And that is where we come to the concept which is referred to as groupthink. What do you see from this particular slide? There is a group of people sitting around a table. Everybody says, I agree to what the leader is saying. But internally, if you see, they are saying, no, we are doomed if we take this opinion. No, bad idea. But none of them are ready to express that I have a contradictory opinion. So it is a phenomena where people tend to conform with the group decisions to avoid feeling of outcast because they feel that if I say that no, sir, this is a bad idea, or sorry, sir, it will be a disaster for us, it can lead them to become sidelined from the group. All right, so they do not want to take that risk that, oh, I will be singled out. So it is better to agree. But many a times, this kind of agreement leads to the disastrous consequences. So groupthink is characterized by the appearance of consensus. Every member believes that since all group members agree upon a particular policy, if I say something against the group decision, it may affect the solidarity or the cohesion of my group. The strength or the binding among the group members may become affected. So they, in the group thing, it is they do not they want to remain out of touch with reality. All right. So groupthink is likely to occur in very homogeneous and cohesive groups that have no tradition of considering alternatives, and they can lead to failure. A very good example of groupthink is from the Vietnam War. From 1964 to 1967, President Lyndon Johnson and his advisors, they escalated the Vietnam War and thought that Vietnam will come to the peace table. But however, there was a lot of loss of not only the human lives but there was a lot of economic loss also on the part of USA. So 1 million Vietnamese lives and there was a huge budget deficit. So you must, as a group, you must reward out of the box thinking, encourage creative thinking and critical thinking, present alternative course of action, and invite outside experts to come and say something about the group decision. So extreme cohesiveness in the group can lead to groupthink, and groupthink is highly disastrous. So how you can break the groupthink? It is evident from this particular slide. I have a better idea. Did you know that this could happen? Why couldn't we think of that before? So everybody is appreciating each other's opinion. If you do that, definitely it will be beneficial for the group. Okay. So this is all about today regarding group and group thing and the structure of the group and the stages of the group formation.